introduction. I'm Nicola. I'm a biosemiotician from the University of Turin. And actually, I'm very glad to this project because it's really fascinating how nowadays there are a lot of many projects that try to understand animal communication through AI. If you are not aware of this project, we are talking about CETI, for example, Chat, Dolphin Gemma by Google, for example, ISPA. Okay, so I would like to present just a little corpus of analysis, just 2 projects, and I will focus on one of these at the end. But actually, I want to explain how these promises on the relationship between AI and animal communication are really fragile. And I will expose to you some critique of fundamental insight of this project. And after that, I want to focus on the task of biosemiotician nowadays in front of this challenge, and the role of zoosemiotics between AI and animal communication. So we can start with these little corpus of analysis. CETI and ASP are not like little project, but for example, CETI start in 2020 with $40 million grant, and after 2 years duplicated. For example, Adzar Askin, that is one of the co-founder of ASP, said in an interview that machine learning can turn semantic relationship into geometric relationship, and that a language can be represented as a shape defined by the relationship between its concepts. So I want to show you that all these projects, share one common background, that language have some universal structure. And this is why they believe that through AI, we can reconstruct a map between semantic concepts. As you can see in the slide, for example, for this project, all human languages have an intrinsic universal structure that connect words and meanings. And they reproduce this analogy with animal communication, understanding that all species sharing a universal structure of communication. I don't criticize this model. I just want to show you the premises of this project that all these projects sharing. And one interesting thing is that, for example, Google declared that with Dolphin Gemma that in 2026 we will talk with dolphins. So we will create a dictionary human dolphins. So in this regard, the rise of AI translation project, as Massimo introduced us, have some kind of problems, but we can focus on the shared methodology of this corpus of project that they're developing right now. For example, we have collect large-scale bioacoustic and behavioral data. We have a shared methodology that segments and classify acoustic signaling. For example, in a very big data collection from the 80s, for example, we can recollect in a very big archive the signaling from the whales that are recording in the 80s and nowadays are in the internet universe. So they correlate signals with observed behaviors in social context, obviously, and train neuronal networks to identify regularities and latent structure. But there are many common assumptions that is really problematic from a semiotic perspective. For example, animal communication is structured like human language. As we well known from Seebeok and Danesi show us, we have models that is a continuity modeling, but we have some kind of very big difference between animal communication and human languages. For example, iconicity and index and symbolicity like levels. And meaning is discoverable via algorithmic decoding. So sometimes this project talk about translation, sometimes decoding. We are not able to distinguish if translation is decoding animal communication and vice versa. So, and one of the assumption is universal translation is possible through patterning recognition. So, like citing a very knowing work by Soren Brier, is a massive amount of data enough? So, for example, CETI, as you can see in the slide, for example, this is a very big collect of data. Now we have ChatGPT 3, we have ChatGPT 2, sorry. So CETI is inside of this like big amount of data collection, very big. So, but CETI use AI to translate sperm whales, for example, click using languages model. And this is really anthropocentric methodology to apply. And this assume there is a code to decode inside the living beings, like translating a foreign language. So Daria will be spoken about this understanding of how to decode like the tree of life from this project perspective. But whales, for example, clicks are part of social, affective, and ecological life understanding. So how AI can like decode these embodied, meaningful expressions. So the problem is the CETI project, for example, risks to flattening the complexity of animal communication. This is obviously, no? So for my biosemiotic understanding, meaning in nature is not decoded, it's lived, felt, and co-created. And this is the reason why I want to like show you for my, this is my like understanding of the task of biosemiotician nowadays in this respect. For example, we can apply a very strict semiotic analysis, no? Semiotic of text that is really powerful in Italy right now, no? For example, I analyze this scientific paper where you can see this image where they show the multimodal construction of how they decoding whale signaling, no? But if we like apply this strictly semiotic methodology, we can see that, for example, reveal very fragile structure in how they expose the result of this project. But this is not enough for me, because the powerful of biosemiotic analysis can show us, for example, in this second paper, where a group of mathematicians show in 2010 how the climate change are changing the channeling where the whales are communicate each other. So where the communication of whales are changing in relation to the acidification of the ocean, no? So, for example, the task of biosemiotician and ecosemiotician too is, for example, to analyze how in front of climate change, the whales can change how they perceive the environment and how they communicate each other. So this is just a few examples, because I want to introduce that this is my personal point of view about biosemiotic standpoint. So, for example, for my perspective, there are a lot of limits of semiotic analysis in semiotic of the text analysis, because, for example, language in living beings are not a fixed text, not a static text to be deciphered like the Rosetta Stone or dead languages, but rather a dynamic semiotic system in constant evolution. So there are a lot of limitation of textual semiotics when applied to analyzing living, adaptive, and evolving communication system. And this is the reason why here we can see like the powerful of those semiotic analysis in the collective volume by Maran et al. So, for example, we always forget that we are animals, so we share some kind of spaces of overlapping Umwelten, no? So this is the reason why humans obviously are capable of making sense of all the animals, but not through the mediation of AI, through like shared spaces mediated through like shared environment and joint activities and so on. So, for example, when I showed this presentation in the University of Cagliari, rightly Ludmila said to me, but Nicola, this is a problem that we have in every translation between our language too, for example, no? So how, for example, this project can fit inside our semiotic translation tradition, no? For example, yesterday, Susan was talking about the difficulties and the powerful of translation, no? So, for example, in Jacobson typology of translation, where you can see these three understanding of the translation, we have the intersemiotic translation. That is from Jacobson point of view, from verbal sign to non-verbal system. For example, a novel, no, that translate in a painting, no? So this is a very epistemological issue because, for example, this project, for example, CETI in this focus, inverts Jacobson model. So, for example, instead of trying to translate the verbal to non-verbal, it projects human linguistic categories onto non-human signals. So from non-verbal to verbal. And this is not at all a black box where something happened. It's just a code construct by human beings and by our anthropocentric and linguistic categories. And this is not intersemiotic translation, but a retro-projection of human language structure. So here, some critical point of this like project from my research right now. No? For example, the first critical point is even human-to-human translation is obviously never fully isomorphic. This project says that in the future, we will translate perfectly the animal communication. So this is a very ideological perspective to understand the complexity of living beings. And another critical point is in this cross-species context, meaning is even more embodied, situated, relational. And if we try to understand living beings through a mediated AI without any Umwelt understanding of the world, how we can trace this powerful embodied communication that every living beings have, no? So CETI risks to reducing whales' semiosis to a static code legible to machine, erasing its pragmatic and ecological dimension. So to conclude, I want to show you some very core biosemiotic concept that obviously you already know, to re-understand the relationship between AI and animal communication through our field, biosemiotics. So for example, we can use Umwelt theory, obviously, is the ground of our methodology from Jacob Boyne's school. Everyone knows this theory, but the important things is that, for example, we can highlight how AI system lacking embodiment and cannot inhabit an umwelt. And this is really problematic. And we can help this kind of project to re-understand their position, through animal communication, in front of animal communication. Semiotic freedom, a very, very deep concept of Jesper Hoffmeier. It really helpful here to understand that animal communication is not like an open window to us, but there is some kind of opacity where we cannot decode everything in animal communication. And this is why meaning is, as Umberto Eco said, an opera aperta, an open work. Every time is open and free. And this is the reason why this concept, it marked the evolutionary divergence of species semiotic capabilities and resist computational formalization. And this is really interesting because semiotic freedom resists to the development on AI to translate living beings. And the last concept by Kalevikul and Peter Torup, very fascinating concept that I want to develop more in these years, is biotranslation, published in a book edited by Susan Petrilli. Is like, in very general term here, the process by which signs are transmitted between different Umwelten or semiotic system. Unlike linguistic translation or EU translation, biotranslation operates within ecological and affective constraints too. So we can understand each other through unconscious biotranslation every time we see each other, every time we live together in the same environment. And this is really important because it requires interpretive compatibility and not syntactic correspondence. So this is my last slide, because I want to show you that somehow we live in a very performative environment nowadays. We try to collect a lot of data and translate, but maybe we can slow down and see how, for example, Jane Goodall lived inside of the forest with gorillas and chimpanzees to understand each other, for example. So AI is a kind of historical shift from field-based observation, this ecological ethology, fantastic design and developed by Jane Goodall, to data-driven, impersonal collection, totally. And signification, for example, in this case, from a biosemiotic perspective, emerge from within an umwelt. So no disembodied decoding is possible nowadays. So AI obviously lack umwelt, as I said before, intentionality, affective grounding, semiotic freedom, and so on. So, but translation and biotranslation is really important because it's not possible without word inhabitation. And this mediation become a simulation. So we are every time talk with us another time through AI mediation. So for conclude, for the comparative perspective of zoosemiotics, by contrast, the embodiment of the meaning, the biosemiosis, has central importance. Thank you for your listening.
Sorry, we need technical help to find the rest of presentation. I can give you.
Do you have a PowerPoint as well?
Yes.
Or just a Google? Because the PowerPoint is easier.
As well. I always have feeling like we are rock stars in biosemiotic gatherings. So this microphone basically highlights this 2000 vibe of